Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a very exciting one. So today I'm going to show you how to use the Mega Menu Pro for Edge to basically customize it to what you want. When you get the navigation, this is what you get with a bit of an extra menu items. But basically this is, you just get, this basic nav, and we want to take it from here and we want to build something like this. The difference here is you have the regular drop downs, and here they are they look more polished, they clean up a little bit. And on mobile, this is what you have, and we want to take it from here to here on mobile. All right, so let's begin. It's going to be an exciting one. The purpose of this video is to show you how to basically style the navigation, how to customize it, and you're going to see from this that is fairly straightforward. So we have the overlay and sticky header that scrolls, shows up when you scroll back up and then disappears when you scroll down. And so here we don't have that, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're going to do is to just get this, just what you're seeing here, and also get this hover effect. Okay, here you have this underline, so we're going to remove all that and just make it something like this. I'm going to go in there, and the first thing I want to do is to enable sticky header and enable overlay header. The overlay header is going to allow us to get it to look like this, where it looks as if it is hanging, from the top of the page. So I'm going to enable that, and I'm going to set the overlay header width to something like 1400 pixels. You could use a variable. For example, if you're using var content width, you can actually say to use var content width here to align to your content width. And then so I'm going to put the overlay header radius to be 50 viewport width. That's going to give me that rounded. And the inset will bring it off the edge, the top of the page. And that will be, I'm going to put that 20 pixels. So let's save and preview on the front end. All right, so very quick, we already have that. Now the next thing, I want to round this button. So the last item is button. If you go to the nav, you're going to see the setting last item is button. Okay, so we already have that settings, but before we do that, if you notice that this part of the navigation is at the center, whereas this is still aligned to the right. So to move it to the center, we are on the nav component, and we have the last item button is button, and then you have the non-button items alignment. I'm going to move it to center, so that moves this to the center. And I'm going to go to the menu item so I can style this last item, and then I'm going to click here to check CTA buttons all, CTA last, that is CTA 1, the last one, which is the first one if you have 3, so because this supports up to 3 last button. Okay, so the first one, we want to change the border radius to still 50 VW. Yep. And then we also want to remove this line. Okay, and if we go to the active state, we see the menu item active border height, so I'm going to move that. Now the menu item hover border height is set to be, basically this is the hover border height, but it is set to be the active border height also. So I'm going to just change it from here and just change it to 0, and then we don't see it again. And then we're going to set the overlay, the hover background. But yeah, so let's do that. The hover background, so if you go to here, you can see hover state, and then hover BG. I have this nice color that is called seashell. Now I'm just going to use named CSS colors for just to quickly run over this. So we have that, but we need to set the border radius. So if we come down here, you can see menu item radius. I'm also going to set it to 50 VW to give me that peel shape. So let's save so far and see what we have. All right, so we have that. It's looking like what we want. And let's look at this again. You can see that this is a bit smaller. From here to here is smaller than from here to here. And that padding is coming from the the padding is coming from the logo. All right. So if we go to the logo, we could set the padding block to 0. Okay. Now, so what's the next thing? We have this link plus badge. It has a label. Ours doesn't have a label. So I'm going to just select that and make sure that menu item is selected. So you're going to see an option badge. So what you do is just write in what you want. So for here, I'm going to just write new. Okay. Hot is written here. I just want to write new here. And you could go ahead to change the colors for whatever you want. Okay, I'm going to save that. And now the next thing we want to do is to get this drop down to have a gap like that. Yep. So our drop down doesn't have a gap. So let's refresh this. It doesn't have a gap. Okay. So we want it to have a gap. So we're going to go to under the nav. We're going to go to drop down. And then we're going to go to drop down offset gap. I want to set it to 10 pixels. All right, that gives me the gap that I want. And I want to also do the border radius. To get the border radius, you come here and you have the drop down content radius. I'm just going to put 2 rem there. And that is going to give me drop down content radius. Let's save it and check on the front end. All right, so we have it. So we have the border radius. And but you know, we have it now. You can see that this works well. Okay. Okay, so there's something. The top of this is not rounded. If you look at this, the top is rounded, and that's because the drop down, the nestable drop down, has this image in here, and it is not set to overflow hidden, because you can't actually do that because it's a nestable drop down. It flies out, so you can't overflow hidden it. So what we need to do is to set the same border radius to this. So how do we do that? We have to set it to that the container that has that image. So I'm going to go there, click on that, and that container, the div, there is no class on that div. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a class there. I'm just going to call it drop down image wrapper, and I'm gonna give it a border radius of, now we want that border radius to be the same as the border radius of the drop down, so we can actually check that variable what it is. So I'm gonna just keep that open, and I can go there to check the border radius. Okay, so I can check border radius. So it's called drop down content border radius. I'm just going to copy that. I could just right click and copy value. So I'm going to go back there and just paste it. Now we have that border radius, but the problem is that it's still showing through. The image is showing through. So I'm just going to say overflow clip. And that is going to clip that image. And I'm going to apply that same. Now if I move this down, I'm going to apply that same class here. So the class is drop down image wrapper. All right. Where did I apply that? I think I applied it at the wrong element. It should be at the div. Drop down image wrapper. Good. And then I'm going to come here and select that. Let's move this a little bit. All right, so I've applied that class there, and note that this is a nestable drop down. I had to build it manually. I had to build this part, add a div, and change it to an li. Then I added some menu items and all that. So let's look at the front end. All right. Okay, so it works, so we can see that border radius, but the problem is that when we hover, we have this white stuff there, and that is because the drop down, you know, has this feature that, you know, blends. You can see that there's a border here, but when we hover, that border disappears to blend these two together, so it gives it a neat look. But it wants to do the same thing here. Now if we can disable that by going to the nav items, drop down border radius, and we can So just under the content, drop down content radius, we can remove that option. And that is one way to deal with that, to remove it's called blend open drop down. So if you want to blend it, like that. But if you remove that option, you see, so the border radius no longer blends. But I like that blending because it looks cool. You can see we don't have that problem again. So now one way to solve this kind of problem, if you want the blending to remain, let's refresh again. So you can see that it's blending, but the problem is that it's, we have that white stuff here. So to remove that white stuff, you can actually go to that element that has that border radius and add an attribute blend. Just add blend. Add blend. I'm going to come here to this one. I'm going to add blend. That's just the attribute that you require to, then I'm going to come here and I'm going to add blend. Now once you add that and go to the front end, it's going to allow, instead of just the background blending, even the item that had that border radius is going to blend also. So let's refresh. You can see now that blends. So it's up to you to decide which one you want to go for. But personally, I really like this, the blending. It looks cleaner. Now you also notice that we did not change the border radius of the drop down because it automatically picks up the border radius of the content. So that is how it works. Now, so what else? So we're basically done with that overlay. Yep. Problem is that we have a problem here. You see the border radius here. I mean, you could go with concentric radius and all that, but I'm just going to keep it simple. And I'm going to come to the header here. And then I'm going to go to the header inline padding. I'm just going to keep it. It was using clamp here. I'm going to use 0.5 rem. And that gives me what I want, 0.5 rem. Let's look at the mobile. So on mobile, we do not have, we don't have the overlay. So to enable overlay on mobile, you just come here and make sure you enable overlay on mobile. Now the reason this is done this way is to keep it separate, is to, give it flexibility, because you might want to have this overlay style on the desktop, but you don't want it on mobile. So you have to explicitly state that you want it on mobile. So we're going to save that and we're going to check again. All right. So we have it on mobile, but we have issues with that. That padding is a bit too small for mobile. So I'm going to take that header inline padding. Now I want to style this for mobile. To style it for mobile, you scroll all the way down. So I'm just going to come here and just say, now there is a class that is added to, you could use media query to do that. But you can also use a class called DWC-mobile. Okay. And then you say, like referring to this selector, and then you paste that and change this to a higher value. All right, let's do that. Okay. So while we're here, let's do something about this. Now here we have the navigation, the toggle looks different. So how do we change this toggle from this to this? Select the toggle element, and first of all, go to toggle styles. Now let's view it on a mobile. Toggle styles, set it to peel, and then go to label and enable label. So you have, the close, that is the open text and the close text. So open text is menu, close text is close. For here, we want to just change it to open. To make this the same length, the hamburger. Now there are different lengths here, as you can see. We want to make it the same length. So we're going to click equalize. It just makes it the same length. And then we want to change the peel background color. So I'm going to use that same color. I think it was called seashell. All right, so we have that seashell, and the border color. We want to change it. Now you can see how it's not just a border color, it's border. So you have to write out everything. So I'm going to say solid. There's a color I like called Misty Rose. Now this is not best practice. The reason I'm using name colors is to speed up the workflow. like to show you, demonstrate that you can actually style this. You could use your colors, your primary colors, your color mixings and all that. 1 pixel. So that gives me what I want. So I'm not saying you should go ahead and use your named colors. Now we have this, now when you have a suspended overlay header like this, you sliding in from the bottom doesn't look good anymore. So what I did here was to just slide from under like that. You have the option to slide in full screen if you want. For example, if you go to the nav and then you can come to mobile and turn on full screen. Let's see how that looks, but that is not what I think I will use. Let's refresh and you see it goes full screen. Now if you want it to slide in, then that is a better option, okay? But then we don't want to do full screen. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to slide in direction from the top. Now once you do slide in direction from the top and you have this style, this overlay header with border radius and all that, it's going to give you a very unique style that just, you know, morphs in from under the, you know, the header. And this looks really cool. You can see how that mobile menu automatically expands, you know, when you open the stuff. But we want it to like expand downwards. We don't want it to slide in. Okay. So you can go to, yep. So under mobile menu, the slide in sub menu reveal, we change from sliding to expand, and we're going to save that and refresh, and then you have it expanding. Notice that these are you know, nested drop downs, and they look really good here with indentation. Okay. Now we're done with that. I think what is remaining is basically just making this scroll up, hide on scroll, and show on scroll down. And to do that, you go to the header and then you go to scroll visibility, then scroll down visibility. We want to hide all rows, and scroll up visibility. We want to show, we just want to reverse. That's all. Refresh. So if we scroll up, it goes, and we scroll down. Now it's not doing that because of the admin bar. Okay, so we could remove the admin bar, turn that off for now. All right. Okay. You can see that we have a problem here because we have an overlay header. You know, our hero text is, you know, behind is behind the header, but here you see that is resolved. So to resolve that, you go to the header, under overlay, you go to offset section padding and turn this on. Okay. Then once you turn that on, you're going to see the value. I mean, we already have a default value here using clamp. So I'm not going to put any value here because there's a default. So if you're not satisfied with the default, then you can add your own. So let's look at mobile. So everything looks great on mobile. So it offsets that, and here it looks good also. All right, so that's it. So that took us about probably less than 20 minutes to do, and basically you didn't need to write a lot of codes. You know, you just click and change values. You probably didn't write any code except for just maybe changing the border radius for this, you know, this wrapper. Apart from that, you basically did all this without writing codes, you know, writing a lot of CSS. So if you found this useful, please hit the like button, share this video for others, let them see it, how easy it is to use this Mega Menu Pro and Header Builder for Edge. And also check out the link in the description. If you have already purchased this, I would recommend you get the latest version, and because there's been a lot of bugs, you know, there's been a lot of fixes. You know, one thing with trying to do something that is easy to use, you have many you know, many parts that are coming together, and there's bound to be bugs. So I've been fixing the bugs. So check out the latest version. If you try to do this with the old version, probably would not work out well. Definitely will not work, because I've had to fix a lot of bugs to get this thing working as you know, smoothly as this. All right. Until next time, do have a great day. Check out the link in the description. Bye.